Hello, this is Leanne, and today I will be demonstrating how to shoot video with a Nikon D3100 DSLR camera. After you have your camera switched on, then you want to take a look at the mode dial here. Typically, you set it on manual so you have full control over the functions of the camera, such as the aperture and the shutter speed. Next, you'll want to go in and set your white balance and your ISO, and that can be done by clicking on this little I button here. It brings up your menu. Click it again, you can edit it. So that's the white balance, that's the ISO. So the white balance, click the OK, and there are different settings for the white balance depending upon what your lighting conditions are, such as incandescent, direct sunlight, flash, cloudy, etc. If your lighting changes, as in a lot of instances, you just want to set that at auto. To change the white balance, you just click down here, click OK, and this is the light sensitivity, depending on your lighting conditions as well, typically set at 400. I'll go into the definitions of each of these functions a little bit after I show where they're accessed on the camera. Now that you have that set up, the next thing you want to do is set your shutter speed. And a typical shutter speed for video is about 1/50th of a second. And to set your shutter speed, you take this little dial here. Let's turn this back on. And as you can see, that fraction of 1/100th of a second. The higher the fraction, the faster the shutter speed. So typically, like I said, you want it 1/50th or 1/60th of a second. And then the next thing you want to adjust is your aperture. And that is done by pressing on this button and that wheel. And basically what you're trying to achieve is a perfect meter, which, as you can see right here, you want it somewhere in the 0 range. And that might not be possible at this ISO level, so we would click here, back into the ISO. Maybe we need a little more light sensitivity. Back out, increased it to 800. Try that again. And again, we just want to get that at the 0. Another thing that makes a difference is the focus. So you want to set your camera up instead of automatic focus. I'm going to slide this over to manual focus, so then you could focus throughout your shooting conditions. So if I had this on again, put the camera in live view, which is just shows you what you're currently shooting, and then you can focus with that ring to get whatever it is you're shooting into focus. It's kind of a glare here, so it's a little difficult to show. A couple other settings in your menu, again by pressing the I, that I need to review are, let's see, press that again, are active ADL, active D-lighting. And you want to turn that on. See the difference. It deals with the contrast. Typically just want to leave that on. And also another thing is the mode of movie settings, and you want to typically set that at 1080 with 24 frames per second. If you have a higher frame per second rate, you want to increase it, but that's the max on this camera. And that is the menu. You're going to make sure that here that your exposure and flash compensations are set to 0. And that's pretty much the setup for the camera for video. To actually record the video, you want to put it again in the live view focus in on what you're shooting. And then this record button right here starts recording. To stop it, press the record button again. To play it back, you press this little play key here, and then the OK.
Starts recording. Stop.
And that's how you play the video back. I would now like to review some of the terms that were used in the demonstration. Set up for video, the shooting mode should be set to manual for full control of the aperture and the shutter speed. Focus on the lens should be set to manual. Some settings that I will be reviewing are white balance, ISO sensitivity, active D lighting, movie settings, shutter speed, and aperture. For the white balance, that is used to control the white point in the video, and it is dependent upon the illuminant that you're using. Auto for various lighting conditions is recommended. ISO sensitivity is used to make image more or less sensitive to the available light. Sensitivity increases as the ISO number increases. As ISO increases, the video will also become grainy. It's better to add lighting on the subject than to increase the ISO sensitivity. Active D lighting is used to optimize the high contrast images to restore highlight details. This should be turned on for video. As noted in the demonstration, movie settings, you should shoot at the highest frame rate possible. Most cameras like the D30-100 would be 1080, 24 frames per second, but if you have the option to do so, for better quality, you should increase the frames per second. For instance, 30 frames per second is the max on the D30-200. Shutter speed is displayed as a fraction. For instance, 1/3200th of a second is faster than 1/50th of a second. Shutter speed controls motion. A typical shutter speed for video is 1/50th of a second, and that will allow you a good balance. Aperture is the adjustable opening in the lens that allows the light to the camera's image sensor. This number is displayed as an f-stop. The smaller the number, the more light allowed in and bigger the opening. You should adjust the aperture for optimal amount of light for an exposure on the exposure meter of 0. For the remainder of the video, I will be showing some of the techniques that could be used for videoing. For instance, one of the techniques that I'm showing right now is zooming in on an object. Another technique that can be used is getting a wide shot instead of something zoomed in. Also, panning the camera is useful to display motion. For some of these techniques, it's easier to use a tripod, more steady motion. You also want to be sure to do a good job when you're framing your shots. Also, timing can make a big difference. For instance, if you just had a still video like this that went on for several seconds versus something that was just maybe 2 seconds or 3 seconds, will make a big difference in the movement of the video. This concludes the video on shooting video with a Nikon D3100 DSLR camera. Thanks for watching.